Hi, my name's Shannon Michael and I'm a local resident in this area and also an ecologist. It's very important that I think we speak about this tree because we have seen a lot of loss of habitat and essential vegetation in this area. So I feel that we need to speak out about this. So the large patch of land next to this tree is earmarked for development within 5 to 10 years. And from the experiences that we've had in Highfields recently, we know that these trees will probably be indiscriminately cleared and lost. You can see that happening on Reese Road and Barracks Road. All those trees, they were indiscriminately cleared. Even with intervention from community groups, council still voted against any intervention, and unfortunately that entire habitat area was lost. And there were koalas in that area, there were many species of birds. Now it's just a bunch of roofs. We need our local leaders to step up and become custodians of the natural environment. The natural environment doesn't have anyone speaking for it, and it feels like our local leaders are not speaking for what they should be. They need to stand up and really take a step forward into the future and into what is going to become socially acceptable, and that is environmental protection, restoration, and even further stronger interventions to stop further damage. As someone with industry experience, I have seen firsthand when development occurs and what occurs during development. We need our councillors to stand up because this is the legacy they're leaving. Is a legacy we wanting to leave a complete barren landscape where there is no more wildlife, where there is no more native vegetation? Is that what our councillors want? Is that what we want? The obvious answer is definitely not, because this is not just about protecting plants and animals. It's also about water purification, nutrient recycling, ensuring that our insect populations are maintained. Without insects, we will have a very significant impact on our agricultural industry. So this is not just about tree hugging. This is about protecting industry, lifestyles, livelihoods. And we do want to leave a world that does have some natural aspects to it for our children and grandchildren. I've lived here for 15 years and I have witnessed firsthand what we have lost right in this area. Behind me used to be a cow paddock. Now all you can see is roofs. That used to have trees in it and they were indiscriminately taken out. None were saved. And this has been an ongoing process for years and it needs to change. What we have been doing for the past 50 to 60, 70 years in development hasn't been appropriate, isn't sustainable, and if we don't change now, we are going to leave a terrible legacy and a horrible world to live in.
I'm Jason Lawler. I've been working closely with the Bunya People's Aboriginal Corporation and the Goomandjuru Aboriginal Corporation for 7 or 8 years now. And this is one of the first places that I was brought to by the brothers and uncles to demonstrate the real connection that exists right here through this whole area actually with our old people. This scar would have been made definitely prior to colonisation, and it's an artefact. It's a direct connection to our old people and the ceremony that was held here, the gatherings that were held on that big journey up to the Bunyas for the festival. So I know everyone in our circles knows about this tree, and I'm very, very grateful that these things get flagged from other circles and brought to the attention of the potential of what they want to develop and the potential for this tree to be destroyed or harmed. So very, very good to our community that we can gather around such an important connections to the past in the space that we are in now. This is, Brother Conrad and Brother Shannon would be very appreciative that you've brought this up, and of course Brother Beaton has been on the journey for some time here as well. So it's a beautiful tree. The habitat, I know we've gone all over this with the other people that have spoken, but yeah, we can't waste these things that give us connection to the past and to the country, to all the life that trees provide for, including our own. Yeah, thank you, old people. Remember. I was first brought over to this tree by brother Conrad and Shannon from Gumjuru to demonstrate, we're right in on the pathway. We're in camp. We're in the old camp. The women's site very close to here, along with the men's site, and then the big main camp was down here. And this goes back, yeah, of course, prior to colonisation, and this link from here directly to the Bunny Mountains is, yeah, well, this is one of the last remnants that's left in this area, apart from Gumunjuru, that tells this story. The old people were here, so it'd be a terrible shame to waste such an important artifact. It's not just a beautiful tree, it's an important artifact. We're just panning around here. Jiru is pretty much in the background, and the mountain. But this is the old pathway. Gumunjuru is a important site because it was used by many tribes. Any tribes coming from the south and southeast, southwest would come through Gumunjuru and initiate their boys on the way up to the Bunya festival. So this tree is a part of that story. There's lots of stories attached on, these are law stories. I'm not allowed to speak around law stories, but as you can see in this landscape view, there was big connection, big story in this incredible landscape. I look at it now and I go, oh, imagine what it would have been like. Imagine what it would have been like. But yeah, the journey was from here to the mountain. Just below us here is the Scar Tree. The remnants of our old story, our old connections.
Hello, I'm Peter McQueen. I'm a tree protector of the area. Trees are precious. If we don't have trees, we all die. And this tree here is typical of so much of what we need to protect. Big, mature, old tree. This is irreplaceable in generations. This takes generations to replace. Offsets count for nothing. It's a matter of protecting trees like this, the landscape around them, protect the tree, protect the landscape around it, and the vegetation will return. But these big mature trees are so critical for habitat, for critters, for life. And without life, we're alive, we all die. Cutting trees down like this kills a part of us. So it must be saved. Love it. Look at it. Beautiful. It's got stories about animals. It's got stories about people. We're all connected to this tree. These trees are Eucalyptus tereticornis, and they are commonly known as forest red gums or forest blue gums. Common names will vary. These two trees in the corner here beside the road, the two largest specimens that remain from what would have been a very open forest over vine scrub over this area originally. And the two trees together just multiply the value of this little area. In Steinberg Road in Highfields, it's a beautiful big old tree. It's hundreds of years old, more than 300 or 400 years old. It has been here forever. It and the tree behind it are the last two surviving trees in the landscape, and it's under threat from future development. These trees would have been all over this area and progressively over the last 200 years have been removed. They would have been cleared for farmland. Fortunately, this one was spared. Very significant tree also, with the scar on it. Adds an element of cultural heritage to it, along with the natural magnificence of it. It's an enormous tree. It's 20-25 meters high, very ancient and full of holes. It's just like a high-rise habitat for everything. There's birds, there's hollows for birds, there's hollows for possums, there's a multitude of insects up there, there's some native bees, This is a whole ecosystem in itself, this tree. It's keeping the area functioning. Trees further up the gully, there are more younger trees that would be progeny of it, that have come up since the really big trees that were over this area 200 years ago were removed. The original vegetation here would have been dry scrub with big blue gums like this, but quite widely spaced, and making very important habitat and providing some shelter for more wildlife, along with what would have been feeding on the vine scrub underneath, which would have had a lot of plants with berries in them, prickly habitat for smaller birds, and so on. So there's a few remnants of those down the gully beside us. By removing this tree, you're taking out the last vestiges of habitat for the native birds. The more natural habitat we have, the more native birds we can protect. Not only do we have all the birds and little marsupials that live in the hollows and the insects, but being a blue gum, it's a great koala tree also. And so in having these trees, it's a big tree, it's going to provide good shelter for koalas, be able to get up into that canopy and be well protected from predators, and certainly with a good plenty of feed in there for one to survive in. And also the fact that this tree, with a protected area around it, is seeding the area. It's the seed tree to reforest this gully.
Hello, Nick Atzini from Toowoomba Bird Observers. I'm the current president of the club and I've been involved with them since 1979. Now, I also have a work career that started in Australian National Parks and Wildlife Service in the Wildlife Protection section. So the interest in birds has been a lifelong thing, and I'm very keen on protecting the birds of the Toowoomba Lockyer Valley area, which is a magnificent, diverse area. Bird Observers Club in Toowoomba, we've been monitoring the bird life of the greater Toowoomba area for nearly 50 years. And I've been involved for 45 years. So I'm in a position to comment on the significance of these sort of isolated remnant patches around the Highfields area. And this particular species, the forest red gum, is a very prolific flower, I think mainly in the winter and spring, and attracts a good number of species of honey eater, nectar eaters, and also the hollow nesters. So we have a large number of honey eaters, maybe 20 odd species of honey eater that would potentially use this tree each season when it's in flower, not just for the nectar but also insects. That would also include smaller birds like pardalotes and gerygones, and some of the birds like kingfishers and dollar birds use those trees as lovely vantage points to take reptiles and other things from the ground. Owls use the nesting hollows. That would be a brilliant tree for boobook owls to nest each season. I have a similar tree with hollows near my place at Murphy's Creek, and they are currently have bred 2 years running. So you won't get owls nesting in these young developments here. So this tree is 40, maybe. Those hollows look as though they could have been here for a couple of hundred years at least. Once they're about 50 centimetres wide, which takes about 50 years, it would start being useful for wildlife, but not before then. The parrots, I guess we have about 30 odd species of parrot in the Toowoomba area, and probably 15 of those would potentially use some of these hollows for nesting, as well as the blossom. The lorikeets would use them for feed. We have 4 species of lorikeet that probably utilise this tree: musk, little, rainbow and scaly-breasted lorikeets. But the other interesting species that could use this is the critically endangered swift parrot if it gets to Queensland, as it does, and it did this year. Toowoomba has had several visits from swift parrots over the years, and they are very localised when they're here and tend to be very site loyal. So arguably a tree like this could attract something like that for the winter, and it would be devastating to arrive at your holiday spot from the cold old Tasmania in the winter, to arrive and your accommodation and food source was gone. So we're looking at basically a magnificent vertical habitat that species like potentially the swift parrot would utilise. And certainly other species utilise all year round for cover, nesting, food, vantage points and shade. Obviously on a hot summer's day, that sort of tree is important. Toowoomba is also very diverse in bird life because of where it is. It's on the edge of the escarpment. We have the Lockyer Valley to the east, the Downs to the west, and a beautiful line of escarpment which unfortunately has been fragmented, and it's important to retain what's left for corridors, not just for the birds but for also the mammals and other species reliant on a bit of cover to get from A to B. We have probably 308 species have been recorded by the club within a 20-kilometre radius of Toowoomba, so that in terms of the Australian total would be about 40% of the species found in Australia able to be found within a relatively short distance of Toowoomba. So we should not undervalue our potential for wildlife tourism and bird tourism. We know it is happening in plain sight, but not necessarily being recognised by the council in terms of dollars brought to the area. With the ecotourism poorly developed in our area, clearing trees like this is not a good advertisement, and we do have a wonderful ecotourism potential in Toowoomba if the authorities and the developers start to think about the benefits of those sort of things and leave these remnant patches for the long-term benefit of the community and generations to come. I'll just share a little story. I've got a little 4-year-old fella next door, and they are absolute sponges, kids. And I look at this young community around here. There would be lots of kids in this immediate area, and they would have so much enjoyment from being able to see that protecting a tree like this brings so many different species in plain sight from, say, their yard that are not actually occurring inside their little domain. So we need to just keep in mind the younger generation coming through. The little fellow next door, he can't get enough now of knowing what bird's what, and that's just through a bit of encouragement and taking the time to point these things out. So I'm a big advocate of educating our young kids, because they are the people that will be criticising us for knocking it all down and leaving us with a far less diverse population of birds if we keep going the way we are going in this beautiful area, particularly the Highfields area. Even while we've been here just doing this recording, some of the species that we've noted just quickly are blue-faced honeyeaters, rainbow lorikeets, red-rump parrots, pale-headed rosellas, galahs, Nankeen kestrel was seen earlier. There's a heap of welcome swallows back and forward And the sulphur-crested cockatoos, peaceful dove was seen just before we arrived, and no doubt magpie larks and magpies, butcherbirds, some of the smaller ones I mentioned earlier, such as the pardalotes. There's a couple of musk lorikeets have just flown past us. So this tree is a magnet, and as I said earlier, the suburban gardens around here, which don't have enough growth in them yet, are not going to play host to some of these species that this tree is playing host to and has been for maybe 200, 300 years. So please just think about what's important, another block or continuation of what's been meant to be here forever.